What's up, everybody? Good late afternoon or early evening for some of you. And you guys know that on this channel, I like to keep an eye on Seattle Seahawks division rivals, as well as just the Seattle Seahawks, because what happens with the Seattle Seahawks division rivals has a pretty significant effect on the Seahawks. When they're good, it makes life harder for the Seahawks, and when they're bad, it makes life easier for the Seahawks. So I've made a few different videos this offseason already talking about the 49ers drama, mostly with Brandon Ayuk, a little bit with Trent Williams as well, trying to figure out what's going on over there. By the way, the 49ers, to my knowledge, have not really done anything yet. John Lynch, somebody wake him up. Somebody tell him that he's got to make a decision one way or the other. You got to do something. But yeah, not much movement over there. And in the meanwhile, we've had another kind of sort of similar bit of drama pop up in Los Angeles with these Rams. So, per Jeremy Fowler and a couple other sources as well across the internet, the Rams have not been able to come to an extension agreement with their linebacker Ernest Jones IV. So they have granted his agents permission to seek a trade. So Jones is going to be a free agent next offseason, so this is the final year on his rookie deal. He is eligible for an extension after his third year. He had a really good third year, and the Rams have decided to draw a line in the sand that is not where Ernest Jones IV is willing to cross. So obviously, if we're talking about him getting traded to the Seahawks, I don't really want that, and that wouldn't happen. So we're not really talking about that, right? It's like Brandon Ayuk. I don't want to trade for Brandon Ayuk, and the Niners wouldn't trade him to Seattle anyway. Same thing here, but it certainly matters if the Rams decide to trade him. So Ernest Jones the fourth is LA's defensive play caller. He had 145 tackles and 4.5 sacks last year. No progress made on an extension, so the Rams are open to a trade. And this is certainly one of the key players on the Rams defense that was pretty good last year. He has been a player with them for a few years now. He made a significant impact on the Rams team that won the Super Bowl a few years ago, but has been evolving and adding accolades as a player since then as well. He became a not full-time, but most of the time starter in 2022 alongside Bobby Wagner. And then last year, he started 15 games and put up those stats that I just mentioned, averaging nearly 10 tackles a game, also adding some impact as a pass rusher. Lots of plays made in the backfield. He was a big reason why that Rams team was able to turn it around, going from their really bad 2022 to making the playoffs in 2023. And in that playoff game, by the way, he actually had 2 sacks. So this is a guy who has some real upside as a pass rusher, somebody who is being utilized very well in that defense, and you're seeing the impact of that over this last season. Like, you go to PFF, and you know how PFF can miss sometimes, and I will call them out sometimes, but they did grade him extremely well last year, 82 grade, and you go back to the previous year, 2022, they were much less high on him. They gave him a much worse grade, and you go back to his rookie year, they kind of beat him up, sub 60. So you can see the improvement as a player here. He is going to turn 25 in November, so about mid-season he's going to flip over to 25, which means he's probably got his best football in front of him. He is a little bit undersized maybe, but he's already proven that he can overcome that. He's already proven that he can be a really good player with that potential size deficit. And you're probably looking at like 5 years of his prime in front of him at this point because of how young he still is. So Ernest Jones Jr., with Aaron Donald out of the picture, with Jalen Ramsey out of the picture, with even a guy like maybe you would say Leonard Floyd out of the picture over these last couple of years. You could throw Bobby Wagner in there as well. There are not very many players on that defense that are more important to the Rams than Ernest Jones IV. I think you'd be kind of hard-pressed to find that guy who you would say, yeah, that's their new stud on defense ahead of Ernest Jones. So this is meaningful. This is a significant deal. I'm a little bit surprised that they can't come to an agreement with him. I do understand that it's an off-ball linebacker, and off-ball linebackers are not in high demand the way they used to be. Maybe he's asking for an old school linebacker kind of money when the Rams are very much not going to do that because they're going to look at things through a more modern lens, and they're going to see an off-ball linebacker as being not particularly worthy of big payday. But at the same time, that is a defense that is going to be pretty dependent on somebody like Ernest Jones being there for them. And this is a Rams team that, while they may not have Super Bowl aspirations this year, they are a team that probably has playoff aspirations this year. They got in by very narrow margin last year. So little margins can absolutely make the difference here. So I'm a little bit surprised they can't come to an agreement. Presumably, Ernest Jones is giving them a little bit of a break, excuse me, because he does have 1 year left on his rookie deal. So he would be willing to meet them halfway. Maybe he's not for some reason, but it's gotten to the point where they're just like, yeah, sure, if you want to get traded, go ahead and negotiate something, and we'll see what we can do. So I guess the question for us would be the same question I asked with Aiyuk. What do we want to happen here? So if you are a Seahawks fan, which you probably are if you're watching this video, what do you want to happen? Do you want Ernest Jones to get his big second contract with the Rams and be a staple of that defense for the next 4 to 5 years on maybe not a record-breaking contract, because Ernest Jones IV, for as well as he played last year, he's not a all-pro level linebacker. He's not playing like prime Bobby Wagner or prime Fred Warner or anything like that. Or would you rather him get traded for, I don't know, probably a second-round pick at this point? Probably. Maybe a little bit less. Maybe it'd be like a third and a fourth. I don't know exactly what it would be. If you guys want to speculate down below what his draft value might be, what his trade value might be, go ahead. But as Seahawks fans, what would you prefer? When we discussed this with Brandon Aiyuk, I kind of came out on the side of I would prefer Aiyuk get traded because he's the one playmaker on that offense that is still young. The others are past their prime, they're older, and Aiyuk is the guy who's going to be very good for the next 5-6 years, in all likelihood. So I came down on the side of I'd rather see him traded to make the 49ers weaker over the next 5 years. Now, you could make the same argument with Ernest Jones IV for the exact same reasons, but I also look at him being an off-ball linebacker. I look at him being playing a devalued position to a certain degree. And I think I'd rather have the Rams invest a big chunk of their cap into a player like this that I just don't think is going to be able to affect the game the way that players of his type used to be able to affect it. Like, this is something that I occasionally talked about when Wagner was here. And this was years ago. This was not last year. This was years ago. Wagner was not that hard to remove from a game plan. It was not that hard to eliminate his impact. Like, I remember that Bills game in 2020, if you guys remember that game where the Bills scored like 48 points or something. Yeah, all they did was like, okay, we're just going to throw the ball. We're just going to throw the ball 90% of the time and just throw it. Wagner had no meaningful impact on that game because that wasn't the part of the game that he could really impact. You can do that kind of stuff with these linebackers most of the time, and Ernest Jones IV, to my knowledge, is not some wizard Luke Kuechly type cover linebacker. So, yeah, I do tend to kind of lean that way. I think that putting a big amount of your cap into an inside linebacker in this day and age, unless he is prime Bobby Wagner, prime Luke Kuechly, is probably a bad idea. So I think I'd prefer the Rams to give him the money, but it seems like they're completely unwilling to even think about doing that. But let me know what you guys think. Let me know how you feel about this one. It seems like this is going to lead to a situation where either he gets traded in the next couple weeks or he just plays out the last year of his deal. I don't think he's going to get the extension, admittedly, because the Rams are a little too smart. I think the Rams realize that the position is just not that valuable. And I think they're just going to ultimately decide, look, we're going to make sure we hold all the cards here because we don't value you that much. And maybe that would be a mistake in the short term because they were counting on having this guy this year and now they won't. But long term, it probably is the right call. And the Rams just won the Super Bowl a couple years ago. They can afford to think in the long term. They can afford to think about the next few years rather than just this 1 year, even if they do want to make the playoffs this year. All right, So that's what's going on here. We got a little bit of divisional drama here. Nice to not have any guys demanding trades from the Seahawks right now or demanding new contracts or whatever. Except maybe Geno Smith, and Geno doesn't seem that interested in fighting about it, at least. I don't think that there's any indication that he's going to make a big thing out of this. So nice to not have to deal with that this offseason, because there will come an offseason at some point where we do. We've had to deal with it in recent memory. We may have to deal with it again soon. All right. See you guys later. Go Hawks. If we ever get an injury update about Nwosu and Artie Burns, I will make a video. We were told we would get one. So if we do, I'll make a video. But until then, see you guys later. Go Hawks.